All right, we're on with Ryan Aune from Wyoming Wings and Waters, and I am feeling a little insecure. I'm going to say right out of the gates because your setup is way better than mine. Your backdrop is way better than mine. You've got a giant mule deer on the wall behind you. I've got some
Got great fish.
office. Yeah, it's a cool fish, John Gierek fish. But
I got
I'm in the office today.
lady behind me. She's the
Oh yeah,
logo
there
on
you
my
go.
hat. It might
Yeah,
have been in
perfect.
that picture. I don't know.
Look at that, so
I
professional.
didn't
Well,
even. Yeah.
you can run this podcast then. You're
All
doing
right,
better
I'll
than
take it
I
from
can.
here.
There you go. Perfect. You and I have been talking about getting together on a call for, it seems like years. I can't believe it's taken this long, but I appreciate you making the time. I know it's a busy time of year for you. We are going to jump right in. I'm going to preface this conversation by saying that you've got a lot going on. And I'll let you talk about it because you can do so better than I can. But you and I met a few years ago when you came on board as an Orvis endorsed wingshooting guide. But then you also came on as a fly fishing guide, I believe, as well. So I get to fish with you out in Wyoming. I get to hunt with you out in Wyoming. You and I have stayed in close contact. You right out of the gates, really, really strong. We're a finalist for Wingshooting Guide of the Year. Finalist twice?
Twice now,
Sorry?
2024,
Twice now.
and then this year.
Yeah, so amazing. So just a really, really strong start. And I think one of the things that really amazed me about the program that you have is I've long loved Wyoming, known it to be a great resource on the fishing side, certainly somewhat on the hunting side, but it's kind of one of these underrated gems. And it was funny as I was thinking about getting ready for this conversation, there's always going to be those people that are like, oh, why'd you have to shine a spotlight on the secret, hidden whatever. But I think probably people are going to know that it's a great resource, and you're going to talk a little bit about that. But primarily, boy, there's so much to talk about. Let's just jump right in. Why don't you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your business, a little bit about where you're located, and then maybe a little bit jump into your origin story, because you have an interesting story about growing up in Wyoming and then really being immersed in the sporting culture, fishing, hunting culture out there as a young person, and then growing that to become your business. So take it away. Tell us who you are, where you are, how this all came to be.
So like you said, Ryan Aune, I started Wyoming Wings and Waters fall of 2020, right in COVID.
Ooh,
yeah,
hot start.
Great,
Good time
hot
to
start. Yeah, it was a slow start actually.
Yeah,
but then the next year skyrocketed because a lot of times with COVID, it what we saw were a lot of when we were able to go back outside, we saw a lot of boom in the demand of let's go outside, let's hire a fishing guide, let's hire a hunting guide. All this, we call it like the guide boom we had during the 2020 end of 2020 and then into 2021 and 2022. And then now it's kind of settled back down. But anyways, to start off from the get go, before the business even, I grew up in Cody, Wyoming. That's where I'm back now. I run the business out of Cody, but I really grew up with a passion for the outdoors. My grandpa had one of the first fly shops ever in town. I believe it might have been the first fly shop ever in Cody, Wyoming. And then my dad was on board when the Orvis endorsed program first started. He was a part of that and out of Cody as well. So I grew up kind of in that culture. My uncle was a part of the program at one point out of Casper. So that, and then my other uncles were fishing guides for him. And so it's kind of just ran in the family, I guess. I always kind of thought I would maybe be a guide or do this. But I went down a different path. I actually went to school thinking I would be like a biologist. I really wanted to get even deep into it, like a PhD status, because I did well with my bachelor's. But then I started getting out in the field and realizing what my bosses were doing, the ones with the PhDs. And I realized the field work paid less, but it was a lot more fun. So I actually, before the business, I actually wasn't a fishing guide. I was a fisheries biologist, which is kind of interesting start. A lot of times people are working as a fishing guide, which I did still guide trips and stuff, but a lot of times people are working as a fishing guide or a hunting guide and then kind of split off from the outfitter, whether it be on good terms or bad terms, to do their own thing. And that actually didn't happen. I lost my job in COVID as a fisheries biologist because I was a new hire, and the state decided to this was in Washington, decided to kind of really cut a lot of new positions. Anyone that was hired during the COVID times were the first to go because they were foreseeing a lot of budget cuts. And so, anyways, um, it got me to move back to Wyoming and really scratch my head of like, what do I do now? Because this is a big hurt. As you know, I'm down in the bottom now with no money. I didn't get any COVID relief because didn't qualify because I was a new state. You have to
Mm.
qualify. And anyways, not really a sob story. It's more of a story leading into why I started. Well, I went back to, oh, I have this passion for the outdoors. I really want to do this. There's not really any fisheries jobs or any biologist jobs open currently. There was some summer field work, great for like college people are still in college,
Hmm.
because they're 3-month positions, pay terrible, but they're fun.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I really don't. I'll do it. I'll do anything, but I don't know if I want to take that sort of step back, where I already graduated and was a biologist, and now I'm taking a step back, just getting a 3-month college kind of job. And so I started guiding. I did about a few weeks in the sage grouse season down with my uncle. He runs some trips down there, and it really opened my eyes up to like, I saw that I don't think I would rub him wrong, thinking this. We talked about it, and I still don't think he's rubbed wrong that I started my own business. But I opened my eyes up to, I really think there's space for this in the Bighorn Basin. The Bighorn Basin is the area I run my operation in. It's anywhere from Cody to Lovell to Thermopolis. It's a big basin between the Zorka mountain range and the Bighorn mountain range.
Okay.
And it's the area that I'm really passionate about, and really have a lot of knowledge because it's where I grew up. It's my stomping grounds. I know a lot about it, and so it really opened my eyes up working down there to see that there was a need or some demand and ability to run an operation like that out of the Cody area, and it would limit my travel, having to travel all the way to Casper and work,
Hmm.
and I was like, well, how do I do this? I mean, what do I do? So I just winged it, and I got an LLC.
Yeah.
I called up the BLM and was like, so how do you get, like, who do I talk to get permits? Like, I have no clue what I'm doing.
Right.
And that's just the honest truth of how I started. Not a clue of what I was doing other than having a passion and knowledge for the outdoors and knowing bird dogs and knowing hunting and knowing the birds in the area and knowing the fishing and having good oarsmanship and good knowledge of and good ability to teach and put people on and know how to put people on catching fish in our area. I had all that, but as far as the business side of things, I was like, I'm clueless. And
Yeah.
so got an LLC, got the permits, talked to some landowners that I've been hunting on their property, locked down a few leases, and from there just basically did some advertising. I talked with a guy that I had been taking a while through my uncle, and he came every year for a big something to do with the museum in town, and he kind of knew someone. I think he knew someone in Shooting Sportsman or something. Kind of got me down that path of like, maybe you should talk with them, see about advertising. I know they're pricey, but you can see. And then so I kind of slid my feet in that door, and it worked out for me. I started talking to a gentleman over there, and he's like, I'm rooting for you. This sounds
Right.
awesome. And so,
Yeah.
so he's like, let's throw some ads out there in our magazine, and let's do this. And then, um, from there, a couple people did book, and they gave good feedback back. Um, and so it got to a writer was Shooting Sportsman, and he called and said, "Hey, I know you're fresh in the business, but I hear it's really fun out there and different, and I want to come out and write about you." And that really was the big start off of where I'm at now. So I'm really
Yeah.
thankful for him. And then that's when you came out as well. So I'm
Yeah.
thankful
Yeah.
for that really from going from not knowing what I'm doing to just boom, here it is a year later. Or that was in 2022, I think. Yep, 2022. So 2 years
Yeah.
into the business, and it's like, boom, okay,
Yeah.
we're going all
Yeah.
in now. And,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's really, I love it. I don't think I could foresee myself ever going back to be a biologist or anything like that. I absolutely loved sharing my passion and knowledge for the outdoors in our area. I love in the summertime we take a lot of kids and tourists and people out in the Yellowstone area. They're tourists that are traveling probably for Yellowstone or the Tetons or different reasons, and they book a fly fishing trip just for the experience in the area. And I absolutely, there's a lot of guides that say no, no, experience only. I'm not taking them. I don't deal with that. I'm not a babysitter. I'm not untying knots all day.
Right.
And I love that. I love
Yeah.
showing people new anglers, getting them into the whole deal. I actually took out last year, a couple years ago, someone in Yellowstone that works for Orvis.
Yeah.
They're new. They were new to Orvis, um, and they're like, and they were traveling through the area, and so they found me through the Orvis endorse guides in our area. You know, it's stuff like that, and then I also went. Speaking of Yellowstone, I went viral in 2023, I want to say, of a bear video I shot on the way. I think it was actually on the way to a trip, the Orvis peoples, and the bear video got 87 million views on my business
What?
page.
That's crazy.
87 million views. And
What
so,
was how did I not see this? What was
oh,
maybe I
I'll have
did
to
see it.
send it to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
What was the
thought
video?
it was a sow and two cubs fighting over a marmot. And
Whoa.
the caption was something like the cool things I get to see on my way to work. Or,
Yeah.
but I think people are just like, wow, like this guy's office. And then also there was a lot of experts on there
Yeah.
that wanted
Yeah.
to tell me that that was actually a boar killing a cub. That was a cub in the mouth of, and then they wanted to that they wanted to say that that wasn't a sow and two cubs are they're last year, they're from last year. The big bear was a boar and it was killing a cub, and the other one was the mom trying to, and I'm like, it's just all wrong. But the more they
Right.
commented and the more they wanted to tell me their expertise, um the more it just got shown to people and blew
Right.
up. And also there's a bad jerk in the video because I've been charged by a bear before, so it's kind of startling. It kind of brought flashbacks back. So
Yeah.
even though I was safe in my truck videoing, I still jerked the phone real quick. And so there was a lot of comments of like, nice video, said no one ever.
Right.
Anyways,
Right.
it got me like 50,000 followers
That's insane.
in amount of like a week.
Yeah.
And so that really blew me up too, where people were like, I want to come fish with that guy, the famous guy in Cody. You know, I'm like, I made the news.
Yeah.
It first got posted in Wyoming, and then Billings, Montana called me up and they're like, that's a cool story.
Yeah.
Let's
That
talk about that. Bring you on.
that's wild. It's
Yeah.
funny, like the way people, the incidental things that kind of get you noticed, and certainly I think as you were talking about I was talking to a fellow about this recently about social media in particular, that the more, and not that you did this purposefully, but like the
Mm,
more there's something kind of controversial, like if you state an opinion or whatever, and people
yeah.
want to weigh in and you know counter your opinion or prove you wrong or whatever, it just there's like this weird human nature thing on social media where people want to argue about things and
Uh,
like it just
it's
blows it
almost
up out of
maybe, I
proportion.
don't know. There's probably some aspect of they're safer behind a keyboard doing it. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Who knows?
It seems like people behind a keyboard are way more opinionated than when you start having conversations in person.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the in-person conversations can be like, well, I'm just not that knowledgeable about this, but I'll
Right.
speak my small opinion, you know.
Right. Right. But it's a great testament to the fact that you are out in a really wild place. And I think Wyoming, for those that haven't traveled to Wyoming, least populated state in the lower 48, just a tremendous natural resource in terms of the diversity of what's there, stunningly beautiful and just empty. I mean, there's nothing, such big swaths of wild country. And certainly I know that's something that you focus on and really emphasize about what you are doing is that you're
Hmm.
getting, people out into wild places, experiencing wild populations of birds or trout or just the natural ecosystems, be it bears, be it badgers, be it whatever, you just see some amazing things out there. I want to go back for a second and talk a little bit about your past. So when you were building the business and when you were um, getting things up and running, I mean, I think you're very humble in saying you didn't know what you were doing, but I would have to imagine that you, with your family history, with being immersed in that culture, like you probably had a better sense of the business of the outdoors than most would coming in cold, and the fact that you lived there and grew up there, you did know the space really well. Plus, you had the natural history and biology background to kind of augment some of that. But yeah, from a business standpoint, did your family um give you tips, or were they
Well,
sort of like
a
figure
little
it out?
bit, yeah, a little bit, but they're really good at just um go figure it out on your own, and
Right.
we'll be there to pick you back up if it doesn't work,
Er,
or
right.
pick you up and then you're on your own to go in the right direction again. But they're more than willing to um you know be proud if I succeed, and more than
Yeah.
willing and give me all the credit, and then more than willing to be there for me if I don't succeed too, and willing to let me fail. But with
Yeah.
that said, there's some tips and stuff that you know um were kind of run by me of, hey, I would suggest not doing this, doing this. So one in particular was a fly shop. I don't have a fly shop,
Mm,
just a guide service. And a few people in the game have their opinions on this, and so far I'm leaning towards I'm doing it the right way, just kind of having my business focus more on the only way I make money is basically zone trips.
right.
No, nothing else, no rods to sell, nothing.
Yeah.
And so th- that was a tip from my dad.
Yeah.
He warned me that shops really don't make that much money. He said you can, in the summertime when tourists start rolling through, you can probably sell 10 of these a day, but are you really going to make be able
Yeah.
to pay your employee and yourself off of selling 10 shirts or 10 hats a day? He's like, no,
Right.
you want to sell the big money items, and people aren't rolling through buying $1,500 rods and different, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Did so with your dad, Scott, obviously he's for those listeners that are in the fly fishing space, he's well known in that fly fishing world around Cody, around Wyoming. He's definitely been doing that for a long time, or known in that space. But he was an avid bird hunter too. So when you were
mm.
growing up, I know you and I have talked about how you and he would hunt a lot together. Was that always part of the picture, the bird hunting in your family with your dad, dogs? How did
Always,
that
yeah.
all come
Yep.
to be? Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times my birthday presents were like another English setter puppy.
Right.
So yeah. So I was working with dogs since I could, legally go out and shoot birds.
Hmm.
I mean, actually working, like I had the remote and, you know, in control of the dog.
Hmm.
But, it was to the point where it was almost an obsession. I mean,
Hmm.
we're talking getting taken out of school, and every
Right.
single Saturday and Sunday, and then getting taken out of school on Fridays. And yeah, it was an obsession. The opening day for sage grouse is now the first Saturday, or excuse me, the third Saturday in September is what they've been going on. But it used to
Hmm.
not be that. It used to be, if I remember right, growing up, it was always September 20th, I want to say. Maybe September
Okay.
5th. Anyways, point being, that was a holiday for, as in my dad's eyes. I ever went to school opening day of sage grouse. So
Really?
yeah,
Oh, it's so funny.
yeah.
So when you were coming up and through the arc of your career, even, I mean, sage grouse is I would say the species that Wyoming is probably best known for, being that it's one of the few seasons left. There's still a huntable population there. There aren't a lot of states where you can legally hunt sage grouse anymore. Wyoming seems to be the place people go to find
Hmm.
sage grouse. But beyond that, maybe talk a bit about what is available in Wyoming, because unique in that, yes, you have that sage grouse season that's a fairly short season. You do really focus on that when people want to come out and shoot their sage grouse or have that experience. But then there's this was the thing that really blew me away when I went to visit you was my friend Tom, who was with me, shooting sportsman. I don't think he had sage grouse hunted before. He shot one or two, I think, and I, we chased him around a little bit, and I was excited to see it. I shot a few sage grouse before. Didn't really have I wasn't super driven to go shoot sage grouse, but what blew me away was just the other bird populations that were available. We saw a lot of chuckers, we saw a lot of hunts. We went looking for blues. I don't think we can't remember that day. It was kind of weird weather, but nonetheless, the populations of other birds and the other bird resources are really incredible. So maybe talk about that across the state of Wyoming, across the state or across the range in which you're hunting. Like, what else are you seeing? What else are you pursuing? Because it's really quite remarkable.
Yeah, it's outrageous. It's not good on the wall how much country I have to cover and scout, but it is so cool to do. It's a fun part of my job to go scout and find new birds and all this. And it's really opened up my eyes to like how much our area really has to offer. As far as I put myself in kind of one of my guests coming out for the first time, put myself in their shoes, and I stop at a spot, in the middle of nowhere on a 2-tracker. And I stop and look and I'm like, I can see every single mountain range. And, I bet that mountain range is 150 miles away and I can see it.
Right.
And yeah. So I stop so I'm not only scouting for birds, I'm scouting for like lunch spot or just a 2-tracker that takes me to a big bench and dead ends so they can just sit there and be like, wow. Cause I really, like you said, I really try to focus on the experience, not bagging birds. Because, I travel all the way. I think you were staying in tent sleep when you came out. I mean, that's 2 hours and 10 minutes away, I think. We can go deeper in from there. I can meet someone in tent sleep and then we can go an hour from tent sleep, even further from Cody, and go home. And I can go home that day and do it all again in the morning, or sometimes I camp out. But I do it because I know that people enjoy the cool views and the diversity of birds. And so I want to take people to an area that they really get that experience. I mean, in one area by Ten Sleep this last year, we weren't as fortunate. We actually had to put on some miles, but in just one hunt walking, we saw pheasants were out of season. Right when we parked the truck, there's a pheasant across the road. They were out of season. And then we did our hunt and saw a bunch of huns. And then we had chuckers running up the hill on us that they chose not to chase them going up the hill. It was a pretty steep mountain, actually.
Yeah.
And then on the way back, we had a nice point, and we thought there were going to be huns again. And it was actually sage grouse. So we had pheasant, huns, sage grouse, chucker, all in one walk.
Like on foot.
But the cool thing is there are times a year that does overlap.
Yeah.
So it was almost in kind of the same area a couple of years ago that I had a gentleman that he swore I planned this. Like I had someone on radio and said, release the birds.
Right.
But we just got done hunting sage grouse, huns, and chuckers basically in one walk again. I think we might have done 2. And he was like, what you have to offer here is outrageous. Like, do you have pheasants in this area too? And then a pheasant flew across the wind.
Incredible. So you do offer this grouse slam. So your season changes. There are those folks that just want to go with you, want to shoot their sage grouse. That's the primary focus. But what else can you do? I know in eastern Wyoming, you get out and you can do sharptails.
Yep.
In sort of in the grassland a little bit. So talk about the grouse slam and how you do that. And have people done it? Have people shot all the grouse species?
Yeah. I've had one couple do it. He was great. He Ray Poudriere.
Yeah,
he does
from
Vintagers,
I think.
Yeah, Vintagers.
Yeah.
Was the founder or something, right? Or something.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. He and his wife came out, Melanie, right? That's it from Vintage, and he loved it. He called and wanted to do it this upcoming year, but I'm booked. But they loved it. What we did with him, I think they flew into Casper and I picked him up. So the whole trip, it's an all-inclusive trip. And so everything, the transportation, your stay is all done through me, and it's mostly going to be hotels throughout the whole state of Wyoming. And it's
Mhm.
really adventure travel focused, not just let's go bag some birds. And because we're putting on the miles and truck miles too. And so I picked
Yep.
up in Casper, and we drove a couple hours north. We hunted the northeast area for sharptail.
Yep.
And we got some sharptail. It was really hot, so we thought we would go into the mountains where it's cooler and look for some rough grouse, but they had done a bunch of rough grouse. I think they're from kind of rough grouse country, if I remember right.
Okay. Yeah,
But
I
we
think
do
they use
offer
somewhere.
some rough grouse. Nothing in the like the east has, but or the northeast. From there, after the sharptail, we traveled all the way to Lander area and did the sage grouse. He really wanted the sage grouse the most. And
Mhm.
so the sage in Lander, Pinedale area, it's mostly there's some chuckers, Huns, some blues, some ruffs as you get, but a lot of sage grouse. There's a area down there that's the highest concentration of sage grouse in North America.
Hmm.
It's um like you can put up 80 sage grouse in a flush type of wild.
Really
It's
crazy.
outrageous. Um
Yeah.
we did that for a couple days and then traveled again up to Cody. And so we just did a big circle throughout the whole state, missing a lot of that southern, southeast area. So we
Yep.
started at Casper's kind of dead center, and we went northeast and then over the mountain so they could see the mountain, and through the southern end of Bighorn Basin, through the River Canyon. They really got to see it all, and then
Yeah.
on down to the Wind River Range. They saw the Absaroka Range in the distance, going through Thermopolis and all that, and over
Yep.
the Bighorns and into Thermop. But and then went down to Pinedale Lander area, and they got to see all that. And then we went back up to Cody, and I think they flew out of Cody. That was where we ended the trip. And the days they booked, there was one day that I was not available. So when we went up to Cody, my dad took them and they had a great time. I think
Yeah.
they really thought out of Cody that they were going to do it for Cody's the area with the diversity. So you're
Mhm.
not going to have 80 sage grouse get up in a flush, but you could have a couple sage grouse and then some Huns and then some chuckers all in the same half day. Um, and then if you want to make a full day, even go up to the mountain and then have blue grouse as well. Like you could
Yeah.
do that kind of slam in one day. It would be a long day, a lot of traveling, but
Yeah.
it's doable. And so that they chose actually, since they had success on sage grouse, they're like, we checked it, our box, we're good. So we'll
Yeah.
just do whatever. And I was like, well, the chuckers and Huns are fun, but they didn't like the idea of the up and down hills.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so so I think they just wanted to experience the roads. Like they were
Yeah.
like, take us out in the country and show us some more views. And so
Yeah.
my dad just drove roads and looking for birds and showed them some cool views, and they had a grand time. He
Yeah.
still saw some and still got to pull the trigger. But that last day, I don't think it was about that pulling trigger. I think it was about like, let's
Yeah.
end it on a good note of really seeing some cool country.
Yeah, amazing. And that was the other thing that I found that was really curious to me when I was out there is that when we were finding birds, it wasn't. I remember this particularly with we saw a good number of hunts, but it was with chuckers. So that just the numbers of chuckers that we saw. I mean,
If I remember
was
right,
this?
we were just off the road. We didn't want to road hunt, but
Yeah,
driving in, I was like, "Oh, there's some chuckers off the road. I guess
yeah,
we could
yeah. And when you
jump out
say
with
just to
shotgun."
yeah to clarify that when you say road, it was like a rough
Oh, we're
like two
talking
track like yeah
out in the
yeah not
country
like
road.
not
Like
like a
most
highway
people,
or
like an average person would probably not even call that a road.
right right.
I call them two
But
trackers.
just
Yeah.
amazing like in terms of the size of the coveys the just the frequency with which we were seeing birds. I mean, there was birds. It's not that I would say they were everywhere, but it was the fact that you could see that volume of birds, even in just one walk, that you're seeing Huns and Chuckers, that you're seeing this and that, like it just tremendous. So, yeah, just really a remarkable resource. And even that, I mean, I wasn't hunting with you, but I remember hunting in Wyoming once up by, can't remember the name of the town, sort of higher elevation, got into a bird cover that a friend of mine had access to, on private land, but it was a rough grouse cover and it was full of birds. I mean, we
Okay.
saw,
Great.
we saw I don't know, we probably moved 15, 20 rough grouse in this one day, you know? So it was like, for me, even living in the East, that's a really good day. So just that, yeah, just again, I can't emphasize enough just how, N yes, it's a huge area, and yes, you're doing scouting over a huge area, so you know kind of where to go, but the fact that you can get people on that many birds and that diversity of birds, knowing that it's not about killing a ton of birds, but I think when you can show people a resource like that, that is a wild resource, it's
Hmm.
totally intact, wild, I mean, at the mercy of probably some grazing and some land management
Sure.
stuff, but just really, really remarkable. I wanna double down on the sage grouse thing because I know you have a lot of thoughts and opinions, and this is something that has been a resource that you've been aware of, that you've pursued, that you've now pursued commercially, and that you've also, through the biologist lens, looked at. Tell us a little bit, in your opinion, the story of sage grouse in the West, sage grouse in Wyoming. What has happened? What are the realities of what's going on now? What are your opinions on, I mean, obviously you have a business to run and there's a demand for people to go out and shoot their sage grouse, and that is, a reality. But
Hmm.
like, how do you think about it? What do you think about sage grouse? What do you think are the realities on the ground from what you see actually being out there looking at it year after year, day after day?
I absolutely, they get a bad rap from locals in the area because they're just like, they kind of like some grouse have a reputation for just sometimes standing out in front of you and looking at you like a chicken and
Right.
with a shotgun in your hand and they're like, oh,
Right,
what are
right,
you gonna do?
right.
Hi.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so sometimes they can be like that, but I like educating them a little bit so they're more
yeah,
challenging.
yeah,
But
yeah.
anyways, I think they're a really neat bird. They're just history and habitat they occupy is unique. The food source they have is pretty much sagebrush leaves. Like who can live off
Mhm.
that? They can.
Yeah.
The chicks do eat insects and some berries, but primarily sagebrush leaves. Um, they don't have a gizzard, so they don't
Yeah.
need to go get grit to grind their food down. And then another unique thing is they throw up, they regurgitate, like throw up the bad stuff and use the good stuff out of the sagebrush leaves. So
Huh.
sagebrush leaves have toxins that they actually are able to get the good nutrients into their system and then basically puke up black tar looking stuff out of all the
Yeah,
toxins and utilize it that way. I think
yeah,
that's really unique and cool. I don't know another bird that really does that. I
yeah,
know as far as all the upland birds that they all have gizzards, they all need grit. And then for
yeah,
sage grouse to suddenly be the only grouse that doesn't. And then the habitat, hit on that, the habitat they occupy is really cool. Just vast amounts of sage is what they
yeah,
need. No forest, no trees, just a vast amount of nothingness sage basically is what they need.
yeah.
Which is really neat. Unfortunately, they're listed as they keep changing it. It depends on what you look at. So they're a species of concern is their official listing, I think. But
Mhm,
then some sites refer to them as nearly threatened. I didn't
mm,
know that was a status, but I think that is maybe they changed the rules and that's a status now. And so they
mhm,
are listed on some sources as nearly threatened, but yet we're hunting them. And
mhm,
so I think that Wyoming definitely has enough. We're still going out and on the Lex seeing plenty of birds. More a steady, stable, if you can have a stable decline. It's
mhm,
still a slight decline, but there's been huge drops in the
mm,
sage grouse population throughout Wyoming. And then during hunting season, they collect the bird wings
yep,
and ask all the hunters to really give it their bird wings, and you hope they're all doing it. And so then they can track like how well hunters are doing it because in the spring they track them by going out to Lex. In the hunting season, they're not really concentrated like that. It's hard to get a good count, and so wings hunters going out and then doing their survey at the end too is always good. But I think that as long as they stay on a very slow, steady decline, I think we're going to be pretty solid for the years to come.
mhm,
On having a hunting season, I do think that the hunting season is appropriate. I think Montana's is not.
uh-huh,
Montana's is a whole month long, and they only hold I want to say like 10% of the sage grouse population in North America, and they
Hmm.
have a 30-day season. I don't.
Is there limit? What are the season limits for birds in Montana versus in
I
Wyoming?
believe
Do you know?
Montana's still 2, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. I don't go there every year. I'm busy and here guiding in September, but if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, Montana's 2, and they're still, because I did get a Montana license last year, and definitely last year it said September 1 through the 30th is sage grouse season.
Yeah.
2 a day, and then daily, and then possession of 4. And
Okay.
so, but who's to say that, you know, they're not cooking them up and then going out again or something like that.
Right.
Um,
Right. What are the limits in
it,
Wyoming? How does that break down there?
yeah. So in Wyoming, it's the third Saturday of September is the season, and then through the end of the month, and then the limits are daily a 2, bag limit of 4. I I really enjoy people showing, or excuse me, enjoy showing people the resource we have. But during sage grouse season, if they really want to sage grouse, I really, that's why I enjoy people like you. Like, let's get 1 or 2, and then let's go see some country and different birds and go
Right.
get the full experience. Um, I'll have groups of, 3 is the most I could take. That's a lot. And then 3 hunters, 6 bird, and they'll miss, and we're just hunting sage grouse all, and then, or they'll wound one and it'll fly and we can't find it. And I'm like, the right thing to do, especially on a species that's listed as nearly threatened, is to say you killed it, and
Right.
you know,
Right.
and we're done. Say that gentleman already had a bird, and that was for. He was like, oh, but I want my limit, and I don't actually. I'm like, for what? Like a picture? Like, I mean,
Right.
it's
Right.
not, yeah. And so just really good education by the state and federal people working with the birds, and then by guides and hunters that are already knowledgeable, is going to be key to keeping them a good solid ethics in hunting season, in the future. Because if we have every hunter out there going just wounding, shooting 7.5, wounding them all, and
Yeah.
they think that's, well, my bag limit's 0, I haven't got one yet. That's necessarily the right way. I really enjoy the trophy hunters,
Hmm.
because sage grouse are cool. Their breeding is unique. They go to the Lex sites. I'm sure you've heard about that or seen videos. Are really cool.
Yeah, but maybe explain that a little bit just
Sure.
so listeners who don't know.
Sure. Yeah, so in April, May, as early as March even, especially for the males, sage grouse will all congregate on a big open picture, like a big, where cows graze down and bedded. And so they'll all early in the morning congregate there to go do their courtship, their display. The sage grouse males have really beautiful plumage. Their tail feathers are big spiky fans, which is kind of
Hmm.
cool.
Hmm.
And then what's really unique about them is the males have air sacs, and they have this big, beautiful white breast with these yellow looking sacs that come out and jiggle. And they're constantly in their display, in their dance, they're constantly gulping for air to fill those sacs back up and let them jiggle out. It kind of sounds like water dripping too, like a dripping. You can hear the sound of the air sacs from a mile away probably. It's really cool. Sometimes if you're at a lek and you're not sure, you're like, I haven't been here in 5 years. I think this is the lek right here. I'm just gonna stay back and use my binoculars. And so you just stay quiet, start using binoculars, and roll down your window, and suddenly you hear it. It's really cool to watch. There's always I mean, if people want to go out, they're more than welcome. A lot of the sage grouse and a lot of the leks are on public land, so people are
Hmm.
more than welcome. Wyoming Game and Fish posts sage grouse lek views. Uh, Sage grouse, when they do the females pick the male with the best display. And so
Yeah.
usually the strongest, best looking male will actually do about 80% of the breeding with the females
Really.
on the lek. if there's 12 males, 2 of those males are probably doing 80% of the breeding.
Hmm.
And the other 10 males might sneak a female here and there and get
Yeah.
lucky, but other than that, so the male doesn't really do anything except his job is to be good at the dance,
Yeah.
and to go off with the female and then immediately come back and find another female. He does
Huh.
nothing with the nest, nothing with protection. And so the females after and they go do this right after the lek. A lot of times or sometimes you'll see the actual mating occur at lek sites, and
Hmm.
they'll go the females will do the eggs. Usually clutches are around um the average of like 5.
Okay.
And so it's typical by breeding season to see those chicks like one or two, one
Hmm.
per female really make
Hmm.
it. They have
Yeah.
low survival rates on the nest.
Yeah.
A lot of times if they're disturbed, another thing that they noticed, they had people from Oregon, I think, out here radio tracking sage grouse, and they just monitor them, and they noticed that if a coyote comes through,
Hmm.
something like that, even that sort of disturbance, they just won't. They're not like quail that all the chicks die and they just go. They're like, oh, we better go make 25 more chicks.
Right.
And so you can go in areas with Huns are the same way, where they'll have numerous clutches,
Hmm.
and they'll have a successful clutch in, say, this time of year, and then just go do it again in June and do it again in July,
Hmm.
and just to have all these chicks and really repopulate an area. Sage grouse won't do that.
Okay.
And so that really hurts their population status. So to respect the lek is very important. And another thing about to touch on the nests, um, if they are able to nest without being disrupted, ravens they're protected. I'll just say they're protected, and they're the
Yeah.
number one killer of sage grouse chicks. Even the government officials, they can just watch it happen and mark that ravens are bad, and that's all they can
Hmm.
do. And so they really peck out even live chicks. They just they peck them to death and eat them. Ravens are
Mm.
brutal, and
Yeah.
so it's a bummer that you would think that it would be, you know, um, a mix of species, badgers, and which it probably is, but they found that in most of the studies they find that ravens are the number one killer of sage grouse chicks,
Hmm.
and so and that hunting really isn't, and so that's
Right.
probably why we still see seasons, especially in
Yeah.
a state like Wyoming.
That's always interesting to me, and I think there's been studies done. And I think some of the studies are. And I'm no scientist, nor am I qualified to say the quality of what the studies have been done. But I've certainly talked to people about studies on attrition or what the impact of hunting on game bird populations is, be it with quail or be it with rough grouse or be it with whatever other native endemic populations. And pretty universally, it seems that hunting is fairly low impact. And I think that at the same time, there is this counter argument around the age-old conversation. Do hunters then, because they have a vested interest in these species, are they more willing to be advocates for their protection, for the habitat, for so on and so forth? And I think you get probably a mixture of
Sure,
all. Everyone's
sure.
different. But you were mentioning something that I thought was interesting about trophy hunting. So people that want to go kill that big male. Talk a little bit about that and talk about your
Okay.
sense of that from a standpoint of, like, is that are you removing important genetics from the population? Is it, what are your thoughts on that? How does
Yeah,
that
so
work?
the trophy hunting is really fun, I think, because you get a nice male sage grouse that, I got a good taxidermist, so you get that aspect of it.
Right.
Um, but what's really good uh, for the population, and there's not really studies done on this because I guess hunter surveys, as long as people are being honest, it's hard to say this, but you just think because it only takes the male if you're out there trying to trophy hunt for a male. So like a 3-year-old male, say, and that male's going to be a breeder come the
Hmm.
next season.
Hmm.
Well, then there's another male around somewhere that you just gave a shot. Maybe it's juvenile coming up onto an adult. That's going to be a
Hmm.
shot at it. No matter what, if we had a population of say 50 females on a lek and 10 males one year, and then everyone went and trophy hunted that area. Now they can fly. I will know they can be far from their hunting time area, the area they occupy during hunting season, and the lek can be miles and miles apart, like 50,
Hmm.
100 miles even. They can
Really?
travel long distances. And but say the birds in that area are stay in that area, and you take out of those 10 males, you take 7 people trophy hunted and got 7 males, and only 2 people took the females. So now you have 48 females and 3 males. Those 3 males will mate with all 48 females.
Hmm.
And so taking away the male really doesn't do anything from a population standpoint. Trying to
Hmm.
trophy hunt, and in fact, I find trophy hunting, I like it because people are usually just looking. They're not trigger happy. They're just looking for that one good bird, and
Hmm.
they're happy if they don't even find it. They'll like, okay, it's the last day. Like, I just want to shoot one sage grouse will be good.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think that is a lot better for the population than people that just are, let's get our limit every single day. And
Right.
then yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and right, wrong, or otherwise, and people have opinions about this. That was kind of my approach, was that I hunted for sage grouse a handful of times, wanted to shoot one big male, did kind of like good. Like
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
but I would love to go out. And when I was with you and Tom, I really enjoyed being out there and walking and seeing it and love being part of it, but don't, the and I don't really think of myself as a trophy hunter, but it was an interesting way to approach it. And I think it's one of those kind of counter, like people talk about trophy hunting deer all the time, and
Hmm.
people have strong opinions about this. And certainly, in parts of, well, all over the country, frankly, like there is that mentality of, oh, people are holding out to shoot that one big buck or whatever. And then the result is an overpopulation of deer in general, of does, too many does, and there can be disease, there can
Hmm.
be overbrowsing, there can be all this different stuff. Sage grouse, being that their populations are struggling to a degree, struggling, I mean, I think it's universally accepted that they're struggling, that if you are approaching it in such a way that you are potentially allowing for populations to at least maintain or not
Hmm.
be as degraded, I guess what I'm trying to say is I see the argument, and I think it is an
Yeah.
interesting argument and kind of a different mentality, different way of thinking about hunting huntable populations,
Hmm.
but also noticing that there are ways you can do that where potentially you're going to be doing more for the resource than less,
I always try to
to
be
hunting.
an advocate for, especially for the sage grouse, because if I lose that, I lose a strong argument, reason, if you will, for why people come out. And
Sure.
so, um, obviously, the business side of things is important, and so that matter. But not only that, I think sage grouse are cool, and even if you couldn't hunt them, like I do care about it. I think that the more hunters can be conservationists, the better. And
Yeah.
so, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying, like you said, it's an interesting way to kind of think about it. Like, hey, maybe just toss it around as a hunter. Like,
Yeah.
how can I, if I truly enjoy this resource, how can I better it for the years to
Yeah.
come?
I know you and I talked about when I was out there, not to stay too long in sage grouse, but I do have a couple other questions. One was that when I was out there, you and I were talking a little bit about the idea of, and this has been posed with woodcock. Do you think there should be or could be a kind of a higher priced uh, license for sage grouse specifically, or has that been floated for the fall
It
season
has not.
specifically?
I would advocate probably for something like that, just because I don't think you're doing anything to, um, like a special tag. I'm thinking out loud, male only, um, and so you would have to. know how to identify the males to the females. In
Hmm.
flight, it's really hard. Um,
Yeah.
and so you would almost go out with binoculars and try to glass them up,
Hmm.
and so I think it would be cool to, just for those that want a limited, a higher price tag, their willingness to pay might skyrocket. Versus, I think it's like $80 for a non-resident season bird license. Their
Hmm.
willingness to pay might be $300 for,
Right.
and if you give out 10 male sage grouse tags for, like, say, a December season,
Yeah.
I don't think you'll do any harm to the species. There'll be males there still on the leks in the spring. It's
Yeah.
just an interesting way to think about it, but I don't see that talk being brought up at new when they have game and fish meetings to say change season dates, or they're floating ideas around. I've never heard that talk get brought up.
Mm.
Um, would I ever bring it up? Maybe, at the risk of seeming a little cuckoo.
Right. Right.
Like, who's
What
this
about it?
crazy nut?
Yeah, no, for sure. In terms of the species decline or the population declines across the West, across the sagebrush sea, if you will, um, what is the primary stated reason for the declines versus what do you think is the reason for the decline? I mean, I think what we've addressed is like it's largely likely not hunting pressure. I would imagine it's largely habitat loss, but I'm wondering like why is there that habitat loss? Is it development? I mean, you look at a state like Wyoming or even Montana, there's big, or Utah, or places where there's a lot of sagebrush country. There's still a lot there, but is it development? Is it wind farms? Is it like, what is it, do you think?
Yeah, so it is usually habitat loss. You don't really see it much in Wyoming because a lot of their habitat is on federal lands. As far as
Mm,
development, what you
yeah.
do see is mining, oil and gas.
Mm,
But they're supposed to. Um, there's all these hoops they're supposed to jump through, and sometimes, the right governor can just sign the piece of paper.
mhm.
They did because they're supposed to go out and actually see if sage grouse occupy the area and are they going to disturb anything or whatever. And sometimes they can just fill out a piece of paper and say they did it and get, so
It's done.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
done. You don't see a lot of that. There's not a lot of development, the new mines coming up, anything like that, any strip mines or new oil and gas fields really popping up all over the place. Um,
Hmm.
I think the big thing for a lot of places is with the habitat loss is subdivisions development going in, and for
Hmm.
Wyoming, not so much, just because there's so much public land, but you
Hmm.
can mine and stuff like that on public land in Wyoming, so that would be a you know cause for thinking of a different spot if that's a possibility. I think that another thing I see in Wyoming that I don't think is doing any good for the sage grouse is cattle. I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this. I live in Wyoming, and I'm gonna dog on cattle ranchers.
Right. Right. Be careful.
Our politicians are gonna come after me.
Right.
It's very, no. I'm not even dogging on them. It's definitely a cattle state. Ranchers rule. That's who's voted in. It's just it always been that way. And sometimes the game and fish and ranchers are kind of button heads because
Hmm.
and usually the ranchers win because they got the politicians behind them. But
Hmm.
what I'm getting at is they spray sagebrush for better cattle grazing,
Mm.
and they say it doesn't kill the sagebrush. You can clearly go up to the sagebrush and see that it's black and no leaves
Hmm.
are on it anymore. It 1000% kills the sagebrush. I think that their hands are tied and they just have to say, "Oh, it doesn't kill the sagebrush. We're not doing anything to harm." Because I think their hands are tied. They can't do anything about
Hmm.
it. I think
Hmm.
I think there's so much funding for spraying sagebrush right now that they say that they're spraying cheatgrass for better cattle grazing. That's the one thing that cheatgrass is an invasive species that the chuckers and Huns love,
Hmm.
especially chuckers. And so it's good if you're a chucker lover and love hunting out upland birds in our area. Spraying is bad, no matter what. It's a no, 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 no. We don't want that. It's killing the sagebrush for the sage grouse. It's killing the cheatgrass for the chuckers. But we do not want invasive species. But the chuckers are invasive, so it's a hard one.
Right,
They're
right.
definitely. I see the need for it. Just spraying spraying for cheatgrass removal. I do see a need for it, but it's hard that it has to harm other resources along the way.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's always a tricky balance. I totally hear that, and I think that particularly when you, I think this is another thing that folks forget, hunters often forget, is that a lot of these species that we love to pursue, pheasants, chuckers, huns, those are non-endemic species, right? Those are
Hmm.
non-native species. And so I think that as those populations have, to the benefit of hunters who like to pursue them, have grown, not necessarily because of competition or whatever, but because of just sort of a variety of reasons. Oftentimes there's the missed awareness, or the absence of an awareness around the fact that some of these endemic species, sage grouse, prairie chickens, those are probably the big ones that come to mind,
Hmm.
are suffering, and so they may not get the attention because they're not as popular, so you don't have as many people interested in them, so they're less thought of when their needs are not being met. So then,
Hmm.
it's like, it's this weird balance. And I'm not trying to say by any means that like we should not have chuckers and huns and pheasants and those sorts of things. But it is just I think taking that holistic view and really thinking about the history of why these species are here and what they're doing, occupying a niche on the landscape that
Hmm.
maybe used to belong to it's like any invasive species or non-native species, it's just curious to think about, yeah, what that
This
all means, what that balance should
This
be.
kind of makes me think of cutthroat trout in our
Yeah,
area. There's
yeah,
a lot of work in Yellowstone in the the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem (GYE) of um killing the streams and putting cutthroat in there. Like
right.
let's kill all the streams and just go back to native cutthroat.
Hmm.
I mean, native cutthroat are cool, but so is chasing large brown trout on streamers.
Right, right. And what are the downstream impacts?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
do those brown trout bring in tourism, and is tourism supporting small business, and
Yep.
is blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah. It's kind of the unmanageable questions, and everyone's
Yeah.
got a vested interest in
Yeah.
one side of it. Yeah, it's really tough. I don't know. Let's pivot a little bit to hunting in Wyoming. I want to talk, and I want to be respectful of time, but I want to talk a little bit about scouting, and I want to talk a
Yep.
little bit about kind of tactics and as far as hunting goes. So first and foremost, scouting. You spend a ton of time in the truck, a lot of windshield time,
Yep.
going to different areas, looking around, using your binoculars, just walking, poking around, seeing where birds are.
Mhm.
In a space that big, and in a space that's for example, with sage grouse, I mean, I think is a good example. You can look at a vast area that has sage grouse in it, but it's not necessarily clear that, oh, I'm going to pinpoint they're going to be right there because it
Mhm.
has these specific qualities. When you're scouting for birds out in the Bighorn Basin or in Wyoming, like, what are you looking? How do you do it? How is it possible, like, with that
It's
much
tough. It's
space?
a lot. Habitat is a huge one. Habitat and terrain. I can be driving these two tracks and go down a big wash and up a ravine and then see a big steep cliff with rocks and all that, and I'm like, this would be a good place for chuckers. And then maybe I climb back on top and it's just a big bench of like ankle high sagebrush. Well, most people would look at that and be like, "Oh, that's nothingness." But there's no cover, food, water, shelter. Th- What is it? Well, that is sage grouse habitat. They
Hmm.
don't need the cover, and then they eat the sagebrush and stuff. Especially occupy big vast sagebrush benches, low sagebrush benches, especially in wintertime.
Hmm.
Their primary diet, only diet in winter. is living in under knee high, like shin high sage, and they're big. They're the largest of the grouse family, so you can picture that. You could see their heads walking through the sage if they don't fly in
Hmm.
front of you. And so that, but to keep myself from going too far off topic, yeah, the habitat is a big one. Going to just experience in the field with hunting them, growing up hunting them, knowing kind of what they like to occupy. And so maybe I see a big south-facing slope with cheatgrass and pockets of sage, and I've been finding it's where we went and found all the chuckers. Maybe we drive as a crow flies just a couple miles away and there's the same hill like that. That's what I
Hmm.
like to focus on to find new spots where it's like,
Mm.
oh gosh, this looks like exactly the same. And then so I really just kind of sit there, glass. A lot of times you can find birds just loafing around.
Hmm.
You can find mornings and evenings the best just because they're going to the roads, get their grit. Um, that sort of thing, and they're more active feeding rather than kind of just loafing or sitting there. Um,
Hmm.
and just drive, and just
Yeah.
find and looking for habitat.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it. What I enjoy is giving people that experience, like I said. And so I think it's cool to learn for myself to learn new roads and new views and that sort of thing too. So that way, if we're in an area and say we do are fortunate and limit out on chuckers, I'm like, oh, there's this really pretty, cool, unique drive that we can do for the next hour, and then go chase some hunts, or we can
Hmm.
just get back to the highway and chase hunts somewhere on the way back, or yeah. And most people choose the rough road experience of like, let's go see some views, and yeah. And so it's
Yeah.
like I'm always out there, not just scouting for birds, but scouting for a good reason, good experience for people.
Right. Right. Yeah, I love that. And uh the other thing that I love that you do a lot is you provide um I think I can say this because I think it's legal, but I'll say it is like, you'll provide like you'll do like a game lunch or
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
soup, like chucker soup or something like that. I remember you did, or I think we had mule deer burgers one day, stuff like that.
yeah,
And where it is really, I think you're showcasing not only the landscape, the resource, but then giving people that other tactile uh tangible
yeah,
connection to the resource in a really special way, and sharing some of the kind of sharing the wealth, sharing the bounty a little bit. I mean, I know I remember that when I was there with you that you shot a mule deer, and I'm pretty sure we had mule deer
yeah.
burgers one day.
Antelope,
Yeah,
because
antelope
I think
burgers.
it was
That's what it was.
antelope. Because I
It
think you
was
were
antelope. You're
saying
right.
you hadn't I love
I had a,
antelope
I,
burgers.
yeah, I had a sad antelope hunting story, so I haven't eaten a lot of antelope. But it was great. Yeah. So that from that perspective, giving people another unique connection to the space,
Yeah,
to the landscape and to the resource, which I just think is really cool when people take that initiative and really showcase um, that opportunity for a real connection. I
sure.
just think is really special. So I love that you do that. Tactically, when people come out to hunt with you, you're in big country, varied country, potentially long walks. And I know you try to get from people like, okay, how much walking do you want to do? How,
Hmm.
from a fitness or mobility standpoint, like what's possible. What do you recommend, like in terms of not only fitness level, in terms of gear, in terms of gun, gauges, shot size, chokes, like what do people need to know if they're going to come hunting with you that they should be prepared for?
The big thing is with gear is your boots. That's number one. Definitely number one. I like, you know, um, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say brand names.
I mean, I think you can. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like Kenetrek Mountain Extremes. People like
Okay.
Crispy. They're similar. So a good, solid, like sheep hunting type boot.
Yeah.
Will last you forever if you're only going to do a few trips a year.
Yeah.
For me, it lasts me like a season or two.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
they're good, solid boots, and most boots wouldn't, with the amount of miles I'm putting on, wouldn't hold up a whole season.
Yeah.
Um, then as far as gear, just your typical, it's not really that thorny. The sagebrush kind of rubs on your thighs and stuff, so brush pants are always a good option. Um, a lot of something to carry your shells in. Most people do still do like a bird vest of some sort. I can carry people's birds. It really doesn't bother me.
Hmm.
My dad's helped me out on some trips a couple times,
Right.
and he's like, "I'm
Right.
not carrying your birds. Put on
All
a
right.
vest."
Right. Right.
I'm way more easygoing than he is. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and so that's like one of his rules that we joke about, but I just can't turn him to be
Yeah.
nice. He's like, "Nope, I'm not."
Yeah.
Yeah, they can
Yeah.
carry it. They shoot it. You shoot it. You carry it.
Yeah. That's funny.
Anyways, so uh, t- shot size shotgun, I'd say 20 gauge, IC choke, to mod, uh, somewhere in there. Um, it, semi-autos, IC. I do let people, if I get the sense that they're safe, I do let people have semi-autos.
Hmm.
Um, just because it does give them a benefit. That third shot really does give them a benefit.
Yeah.
Especially on chuckers, you see a lot of that popcorn flushing where
Yeah.
and suddenly you're out and the person with the semi-auto's like, oh, I got a third shell.
Right. Right.
So yeah, a lot of stragglers, we call them. And so with that, I would just do an IC. I mean,
Yeah.
6 shot. Um,
Yeah.
you can go up to a 12 if you want. There's really no need for it.
Okay.
I really think 20 gauge around an IC and 6 shot, you're good.
Okay.
And then boots, that's the big thing. Other than that, people can show up in a t-shirt and jeans if they have good solid boots and want to
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
shotgun shells in there. Then we can do it. I think
Yeah.
as far as a fitness level goes, I mean, I obviously prefer people to be in great shape. Um, can hike up and down mountains for, 15, 20 miles a day. Um, but that's unrealistic to ask for because that's like elite level shape. There's
Hmm.
probably less than 5% of the population out there can do that.
Hmm.
It's more an average hunter is more likely to be able to go 5, 10 miles a day, and some
Hmm.
up and down, maybe climb a mountain once, but they're not going to do it again in the afternoon so realistically, as long as people can are in decent health and can walk 5 to 10 miles on unsteady. I always say that the ground walking is kind of unsteady terrain, up and down little washes and stuff. As far as the mountains go, I'm like, oh well, if you're 80 and you can only walk 5 miles, you're probably not going up that giant mountain. It's fine.
Hmm.
We'll find
Hmm.
birds down here. We just won't find as much. And
Hmm.
so I don't really have a. I know that some places kind of have a little test form. If you don't qualify, you're not coming. Like you
Hmm.
have to be able to do 100 push-ups. You have to, yeah. I don't have any of that because we have such diversity that we don't have to climb that steep, rugged mountain. We can find,
Hmm.
but I really focus on letting people know that, if you can't do that, then we're also limited. Your opportunities are more limited than someone
Hmm.
else that can do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In terms of this is kind of an odd question, but it is a wild country, and it is something that I think occasionally hunters consider, particularly if they haven't been hunting in the West or hunting in a unique ecosystem like yours. Considerations around things like bears, around snakes, around like other scary things for people from New England like me. Like what are there real concerns? I mean, I know when I was with you, you carried bear spray and
Yep.
you were definitely thoughtful and you've had some bear encounters, but you were thoughtful about just making plenty of noise, letting animals know you're around. And I thought that was interesting. And it honestly was I was impressed. I'll just put it this way. I was impressed with the fact that I find it with a lot of guides who will carry a pistol or will carry whatever in the kind of in bear country. But I liked actually that you were like, I don't, at the time anyway, you were like, I don't carry a pistol. I carry bear spray because I just feel like I can do more with bear spray and be safer with bear spray than I could, you know, if all of a sudden start shooting, whatever. So different things like that. What do people need to know? What are your thoughts on safety stuff like that?
Yeah, so usually when we're hunting, it's fairly open country. Bears aren't really. It's not that type of country that the hair on your back starts standing up because we're in tight, dense wooded bear country. It's
Hmm.
pretty open, so you would think if you see a bear, you're not going to spook one. We would
Yeah.
see it. The closest we'd see it maybe come over a little hill and it's 100 yards away, but it's not going
Hmm.
to be like you come around a tree, and suddenly bear's
Right.
right 5 feet from you. And so
Right.
the danger, it's always good to respect them and know that you're in bear country, but I don't think I've never had a run in with a bear, um, in that chucker hunting type country. Now on the river bottoms, yes, we were hunting pheasants on the Clark's Fork, and that's when I got charged by a grizzly and had no bear spray. And no, I had a shotgun. I was bird hunting.
Hmm.
And so I um I this isn't about that story. I'll just say the bear did not live. The shotgun did its job, and I was able to protect myself with
And just
with
to
bird
just to
shots.
and just to clarify that
Yep.
was it's all well documented
Yeah.
with DNR and all in the up and up, but it was, and we don't have to get into that story,
No.
but certainly the fact that you have had encounters in the river bottom country that
Exactly. Yeah, that's the reason I really brought it up. Yeah, it's it always I'll say to add on that is the self-defense case is closed. It's clearly was the bear was 6 feet away from me. So
Mhm.
um
Mhm.
but the point being is that I have had those encounters with bears, so I always respect that it's their area and their land, and we're just users of the resource, and so you have to respect them, know they're there, know that they occupy it, but it's not necessarily a danger. It's just more a respect of that they think they rule the area, and if they run into you, they will tear you apart. And so in situation, I don't want to be torn apart, and I don't want to watch anyone else be torn apart. So I
Mhm.
am going to carry something to you know better to have it than to not, type
Mhm.
thing. As far
Mhm.
as snakes go, um I don't require people to wear snake gaiters. I don't wear them. I don't like. I just personal preference. I don't. They're uncomfortable. Maybe I'm just not used to it. Maybe if I wore them more, I don't like them. I've ran into snakes. I run into snakes every year. That is more of a
Mhm.
concern than the bears. I
Yeah.
have never had a hunter get hit by a snake. I have had a hunter's dog get hit by a snake a couple years ago. Um, and then a couple of my dogs, but it's never been a huge issue. A couple
Yeah.
snakes a year, and usually they leave you alone.
Yeah.
Rattlesnakes are
Yeah.
actually our prairie rattler in our area is not that venomous. The dogs, every single one of them, I think I've had 6 encounters in my life with dogs getting hit, and every single one of them lived.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's a concern, and it freaks people out. It freaks me out every time I know eventually with how much I'm in that country, I'm gonna get whacked. Um, So there's not really much precautions you can take other than warning people that it's snake country
Yeah.
and that you can wear gaiters, but um or come in November or December, and
Right.
they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And then it's like, okay, well, it's
Right.
snake
Right.
country. We're going. The likelihood is not likely,
Yeah.
a couple snakes a year out of how many times I go out is not that likely.
Yeah.
Um, but then again, you could be that person that it does happen every year, so you could be that person.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'll give a shameless plug for a buddy of mine makes what do we call them? They're the Listo gators. They're made in Texas. Really, really cool gator, very comfortable, snake proof. He was actually bit when he was a young guy, but yeah, anyway, so if you're looking for snake gators, go look at
Okay.
Listo
I'll
gators. They're awesome.
I'll look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. But yeah, no, I think this gives people a really well-rounded description of Wyoming, of your business. Certainly, you have this whole other component, which is the fishing side, which we didn't even really touch on a little bit. But a tremendous opportunity. I think Wyoming. It's one of my favorite places in the world. Frankly, just incredible landscapes, incredible resources, a ton of public land, not many people, really neat little towns. You mentioned. How when I was out there, we stayed in Ten Sleep up in the Bighorns, just beautiful little town, really cool. lodging there and really cool little restaurant there. And like, there's just all these little gems scattered around Wyoming. And I just think for, if you want that Wild West kind of experience and certainly an exceptional wild bird experience, it's hard to beat. I mean, there's just a lot going on in Wyoming that I think is under, again, some probably for good reason, but like yeah, right, under talked about.
Yeah.
But yeah, love that you were able to talk a little bit about what you do and how you got to start doing it. If people want to learn more about Wyoming Wings and Waters, more about you, what's the best resource for them? Web, I would, obviously there's the
Yeah,
pages on Orvis.com, but your website.
yeah, the website, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm not great. I don't I was talking about this with um Orvis's Instagram guy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um anyway, I'm just not good at it. I got all those followers and I don't, but it's a good way, I'll get a post in a week or something, or every 2 weeks. It's a
And
good
is
way
that
to
just
kind of
under Wyoming Wings and Waters, or
at
what's the?
Wyoming Wings and Waters, yeah. And then the
Okay,
website's probably the best resource, or just calling. I love chatting with people.
yeah,
I know that there's a lot of guides out there and outfitters that are, you just wasted my time. As long as if you're not booking a trip, I am not like that at all. You can just
right.
call and ask questions. I've even had guys that I met for lunch. They're like, I'm just in the area. I'm probably not going to book, but I want to pick your brain about yeah. And I met them for lunch and
Yeah. Cool. 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 Yeah. And getting out to Cody's a really neat little town. And again, great fishing, great hunting opportunities, and just a really neat, again, Western town. So, well, Ryan, awesome of you to join us. Thank you for all the information. Thank you for taking the time. I know we ran a little bit longer than we talked about, but this was a great resource. Stay on the line, Ryan, and we'll chat a little bit more after I stop recording. But for listeners, hope this was enjoyable. I certainly was excited to get Ryan on and talk about Wyoming, talk about sage-grouse a bit, talk about different things. Remember to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on. And if you do have questions, comments, thoughts, you can always reach out to me at huntingpodcast@orvis.com. Do go check out the Orvis Adventures pages at orvis.com/adventures, and that'll lead you down the path to both of Ryan's fishing pages as well as his hunting pages, and then a whole host of other adventures partners as well. So thank you again for listening. Ryan, stay on the line, and we'll talk more soon.